As someone outside the construction industry, my assumption of a major risk factor in that field is personal injury. But you mentioned in our conversation that the construction industry actually has one of the highest suicide rates of any industry in the US. Can you speak to the factors that contribute to this?
Yeah, sure. So I love that you point out kind of the contrast between what people see from the outside of construction and one of the realities inside, especially because the example you point out is so inherent to the personal experience of people inside. Especially since COVID, when there's been a heightened awareness of the experience of our people within the industry, a lot of trainings have come out and people are speaking more about what has become knowledge of the statistics in the industry. 1 in 7 people who die by suicide between the age of 16 and 64 is a construction worker. Okay? Second highest rate of suicide by industry in the United States. And often in these trainings, what is cited are industry vulnerabilities like physical, like the toil that goes onto your body during labor, or the isolation that can come from the work, or lack of access to health care, or leadership that isn't fully trained to be in leadership. You know, that's a really good description of our industry. Like, the challenge with the list of what is sometimes called vulnerabilities is that it describes some things that are often inherent to the work that we do. The challenge is how we have to start talking as an industry and exploring what might actually be the problem, which is looking at how we manage the work that we do and the role that leadership can play, especially field leadership can play, in the choices we make when we start managing who we staff on the night shift, how we talk about who can go access their PTO and their health care, how we actually train our people to be able to lead people, not just promote them because they put the amount of wall in place last year.
Each of your respective industries has norms in regard to their cultures and how they function. And this could be said of every industry represented here tonight, I think. Certain narratives that they operate by. Can you share what some of those norms are and what ways you see opportunities to start taking steps toward new futures within them to dig those tunnels that Bjork talked about, or deconstruct some of those narratives?
It's like one of my favorite questions. The insurance industry has been around for hundreds of years. We're looking like maybe over 300 years. When I look back, the industry has always been dominated by men. Not just men, but old, white, straight men. We need to create these safe and brave spaces to be able to learn from each other and really change the narrative. It's been wanting to be changed. If society stops failing women or even people of color, anyone, right, in marginalized and underserved communities, we're all powerful beings. We wouldn't need to have like this whole empowerment thing if society stops failing us. And that's one thing that we need to do in our organization. We need to own our place in the world. And for those individuals that feel fearful, I feel that for individuals that have that voice, that want to be like, we need to be like upstanders, let's use our privilege. Let's use our privilege to help other people and to elevate other people.
So my question for you is really, it's a tough question. I don't think there's a simple answer, which is, how do we really measure psychological safety? Because it's not conventional. It's so essential how you integrate it into every day. I'd just love your thoughts around that, and thank you.
Sure. Measurements. Yeah. On the job site, I measure it with the questions that are asked in meetings and who's speaking. If the people who need to be speaking in meetings are speaking, which means the people who need to be asking the questions to get the information they need are speaking, it's happening. If the concrete trade partner who came on board 9 months ago is texting me at 4:45 and saying, hey, I'm not on the schedule, but I want to get my wall forms off. I've already talked to the plumber foreman. We've exchanged places on the schedule. Don't worry, I'm going to get his fittings off first. Mic drop. It took 9 months to get to that because they'd been beaten down for, however many projects. When people start talking to each other to solve the problems because they realize that value of interdependency, that's the measurement. When the third-party inspector walks on site and pulls you aside and says, I don't know, there's something different about this job site. And I say, could you explain to me what you mean? We have a concrete placement going on right now. He's like, I don't know. People are just like talking to each other to get stuff done. I'm like, yes. And he's like, no, you don't understand. My son's been the inspector out here for the last 3 months, and he's never talked about liking his job before. And it's like, okay, that's a really great example. If you can create the people who said, I will never let my kids go in this industry, go home and teach their kindergarten class about excavation by burying beef bones in the schoolyard for excavation practice, you're winning.
Yeah.
Because people are now taking the pride of work out of there. You're changing the perception of the industry. And so if people are feeling their contributions are valued and talking about what they love and talking to each other, that's the measurement.
How do you, each and every day, be fearless?
I have this mantra that I tell myself every single day and every decision that I have to make. My mantra goes, the cost of being inauthentic is far greater than the cost of wanting to belong. Like my parents, my dad was a badass engineer in the Philippines, right? And my mom was actually a history professor. But there was this big moment when they came back here of, we were talking about being small. I remember growing up, you gotta be small because when you're small, you become invisible. Nobody attacks you. But now I'm I live in my muchness. That's how it's gonna go. It's not my responsibility to figure out how you receive me. It's because again, it goes back into me paying homage to my ancestors who felt like they needed to be small in order to survive.
To know that you have the power in every single interaction to advance a relationship, to offer something somebody has never received before, to thank somebody and to create that impact, it's a lot. The question that was asked before about, what's scary about fearless authenticity, not meeting that demand in every single situation is scary. But that's how you be fearlessly authentic, is you recognize that opportunity in every single opportunity. Yeah.